Choose your character.
Welcome, fighters, to another episode of Would You Like to Continue? And I have a question for you. Who have you chosen to be today? Who have you chosen to be today? When you woke up this morning, who did you decide to be for today? Are you a son, a daughter, a teacher, a leader, or a nobody? In your settings, is it set to auto-select? Questions act as a bridge from where you're at now to where you're heading. You can easily miss the question of who have you chosen to be today and go about your day. Or you can take a moment to reflect, look into a spiritual mirror, and see who you are. Many of us make excuses for our behavior. We say, this is me, or it is what it is, as a subconscious defense to underperform or to avoid the trials of change. And it's exactly that. When you want to change, when you try to make a change into your life, changing a bad habit, developing new habits, good habits, right? Whatever it may be, changing your appearance, it can be difficult. It can be stressful. It can be frustrating. And I don't have to go on preaching about it for you to understand. You can probably look into your life and see how difficult it is, right? This makes me think about Romans 5. So in Romans 5, it mentions that through trials we develop perseverance, character, and hope. It tells us that we develop perseverance, character, and hope. And this is very true. But you got to keep pushing. You got to keep going on the change. Keep going and trying to do what you're trying to do for you to be able to see these three attributes to appear in your life. Our choices carry unforeseen weight. We know that there's a weight behind what we choose to do, and some of us actually may not be aware at all, but we can't really pinpoint the exact weight and in what direction it'll go. Is the weight going to be more on the side of good or side of bad when it comes to our life? Are we going to be more regretful, shameful, frustrated, angry, negative emotions, or more positive? Christian or non-Christian, God lets the rain fall on the righteous and the wicked, and he lets the sun rise on the wicked and the righteous. I don't know if we see ourselves as righteous, nor do we see ourselves as wicked. Probably wouldn't choose those words, but in different seasons and in different moments and circumstances, when we feel a certain way, we may choose one word or the other. But I feel for the most part, we can identify more with the word wicked. I know I met people before who said they can't walk into a church because if they walk into a church, they'll burn. Right? They're being silly, but at the same time, that shows us that there's some things that they know that they're doing isn't right, that they have these bad habits or certain things they're holding on to that they need to let go of, but they just can't find the strength to do so. The other day, I was at my brother's house playing with him and his sons some Mortal Kombat. I haven't played Mortal Kombat seriously in a long time, but I did get to play it quite recently before I got to play it with my nephews. And when I did play it prior to me playing with them, I was just trying it out. Like, I haven't played a fighting game in a long time. I was like, I'm in the mood. I want to play a fighting game. So I went to try out Mortal Kombat again, see how things are. And I did not remember the combos. I spent endless hours practicing. I felt clunky. I felt slow. So I switched over, tried Injustice, tried Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I was just like mind blown. I was like, man, I used to be so good at these games, and now I'm just barely getting by. And it was a weird moment, but it was what it was. Anyways, fast forward, I go to my brother's house, and we started up. I'm playing with my nephews and him, taking turns. Winner stays on, loser passes controller, right? And it was slowly coming to me, match after match. It was starting to come back to me, and I was getting hyped. I was really getting excited. I was like, let's go, let's do this. And I was getting really good. I picked Sub-Zero and I picked Scorpion. Those are the two mains that I play when playing Mortal Kombat. And I just started to really get things together, and it was really fun, really exciting. I felt I can identify with the character I was playing as. I felt cool because I felt as if I was Scorpion or Sub-Zero, these cool looking ninjas with some awesome powers, right? But the question goes, why do we choose the characters that we choose? When you play a video game, specifically but not limited to fighting games, you're presented with a character select screen with the opportunity to choose your character, right? And when I choose my character, I usually go for the character that looks the coolest to me, okay? If I'm familiar with the character's story and their story is something I'm about, then it definitely makes sense for me to pick that character, to want to play them even more. Alright, so if there was an order on how I chose my characters, it would be based off of appearance, playstyle, backstory. Again, appearance, playstyle, and backstory. So appearance refers to character design. So I'm going to go into some storytelling elements here. I draw, I like arts, I'm a very visual person, And when I was really trying to develop my art ability, my drawings and all that stuff, I was doing a lot of research, watching YouTube videos, reading articles, etc., on character design, okay? And so character design, you're telling a story. There's these people known as concept artists, usually for movies and video games. They go ahead and they create a whole bunch, hundreds and hundreds of just thumbnail versions of a character, right? Very loose sketches and ideas, silhouettes to figure out the story that they want the character to tell from their appearance, where you just look at the character and you can say, okay, that character is a bad guy, or that character is a good guy, or that character is strong, or that character is quick by how skinny they are, how big they are, the shapes that you see. There's a lot of things that our subconscious picks up that we're not fully aware of, but it influences us, right? And that's shape and that's color. So for me, I haven't broken down what exactly I find to be cool, but it goes along the line with symbolism, okay? If what I'm seeing represents what I'm about or what I'm attracted to, then I'll pick it. I love ninjas. Growing up, I just love ninjas. For Halloween, I dressed up as a ninja almost all the time, whether a ninja or a Power Ranger, right? I love action. So if the character looks like they can fight and they can whoop someone's butt, okay, then I'm going to be attracted to that person. So certain trademarks, I like rapping, because I think of martial arts or boxing, right? A strong physique, a ripped figure, right? Because that also shows strength, swiftness, and ability. I love kicks. I did martial arts and I did Tang Soo Do, and that's a lot about kicks. So if the character looks like they can kick and do some crazy flips, I love me some flips. I'm just a typical boy liking some basic cool action, right? And so if a character has a play style or appearance that says that play style, then I'm most likely going to choose that character. You wear that ninja mask, right? You look cool, you sound good. I'm a simple man, I'm going to pick you. But as I pick the character, I'm a little bit biased. I'm trying to like them because of their appearance, so I'll budge a little bit further when it comes to their playstyle. For example, Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat, he's pretty slow, but if you know how to move him, he can come off really quick, and I think he's cool. Again, his backstory, his appearance, all this stuff come together, so I'm gonna budge a little bit when it comes to his playstyle. Alright? You can give me a character that I do not like how they look, and that will in a way affect the way I play as that character. That will influence how I play as them. Because even though they may be a top tier character, I just don't feel it. I don't feel connected with the character I'm picking. So if we don't like the person that we see in the mirror, our behavior is influenced. Our behavior, our emotions, our cognitive, all that stuff is affected if we don't like what we see, if we don't like the person that we see in the mirror. I was funny, the other day, I was showing a meme to my wife, and it said, makeup, no makeup, I'm cute, but if my hair's ugly, I'm ugly. And I laughed. I said, Victoria, is this true? And she's like, yeah. I was like, oh my goodness. But it's true. Like, there'll be moments where something's small, and then she'll look at me, she'll make a pouty face, and she's like, I'm ugly. I'm like, Victoria, you're not ugly because of this one little thing. But her mind gets consumed, her emotions, her behavior gets taken over by this simple thought and perspective. And we need to guard ourselves, protect our minds, protect our thoughts and our emotions by what we allow to influence us. As humans, we are visual creatures. That's why appearance plays such a huge role in our lives. If the character looks cool, I'm definitely going to play better, alright? And that leads me to my next point, playstyle or behavior. See, gameplay is primarily why we play a video game. And we all have our own preferences. Some people prefer first-person shooters over fighting games. Some prefer more strategic games, right? It's just a preference. In Call of Duty, I play with a crossbow and a knife. And in fighting games, I typically pick the ninja samurai-esque character. In Smash Bros, I main Chrom. Chrom's this cool swords character who wears my favorite color, like almost all over. Blue, right? Blue hair, blue outfit, and he has a sword. I like me some swords, okay? And the way he plays, he's quick and he's powerful, he's fit, he fits exactly what I was speaking about earlier on the type of characters that I choose. When it comes to Smash Bros though, I never grew up playing it versus playing Mortal Kombat. I grew up playing Mortal Kombat, not Smash Bros. And I have this awesome friend of mine named Caleb, and Caleb is a beast at Smash Bros. This dude played Smash Bros growing up, had friends that played tournaments, all this stuff. He was surrounded in the culture of Smash Bros. So when we started playing together, I started getting adopted into the culture. I started doing my research, watching videos, learning some more video game, fighting game language that I never expected for me to learn, such as frame rates, end lag, lag inputs, all this weird fancy stuff, right? And when picking a character, right, Chrom was kind of frustrating me. I was like, I need a better character. And Smash Bros. Has a lot of characters. And so I needed some player recommendations. And I asked my friend, and I did some research, looked at what were some top tier characters. But again, I still pick characters based off appearance. So I was trying to find a top tier character that I can be about. Pokemon Trainer was another character I picked up because I grew up playing Pokemon, Link, Legend of Zelda. So I would pick characters that I was familiar with their story and I was about their story, as mentioned previously. And there's times where you'll have this moment of just defeat and frustration or lack of appreciation, not just in a video game but in life. You'll look in the mirror and you'll be like, I'm not about this. So you start doing your research, you start watching carefully at other people and see, maybe I can pull off what they're wearing, or maybe I should dress like them, maybe I should walk like them, maybe I should behave like them. Whether we say that out loud or subconsciously, whether our behaviors whisper that into the air, that is something that typically comes to mind. And we have this moment of, if we can't beat them, join them, right? There's a cause and effect. We don't like what we see, so we do something about it, whether we ignore it or we act upon it. And who you choose to be will influence if you will win or lose in a game. And not even just in a game, but in life. Who you choose to be will determine whether you go to prison, whether you'll stay lonely your whole life, whether you'll just be a person no one wants to hang out with, whether you be a charming person. But you have to ask yourself the why, right? What are you trying to win at? I'm a man of honor, so when I play a video game, I don't like winning by being cheap, if I'm 100% honest, because I feel like the win isn't authentic. And the same thing goes with life. Like, I don't want to cheat my way to life, or I don't want to be a cheapo jerk or whatever, very selfish. I want to win at life honorably, right? I want to be a guy that people want to hang out with because I am an encourager. I'm an influencer. I help people, and it's genuine, right? And so that's why I admit that I make mistakes and I have faults and I stumble, because no one, even though it looks like it, no one wants to be a perfect person. No one wants to follow these perfect people, because it looks like these perfect people are so far from us and they can't relate with us and they cannot help us. So it ends up being this weird act of worship where we're worshiping these celebrities as God or whatever, but they're human too. They make the same mistakes, or if not worse mistakes than we make. And it's weird that we find ourselves in this situation where we watch from afar and admire them rather than learn. And we let them decide that's the kind of person I want to be without knowing the full story. When we see these people on media, we only see an aspect, a certain part of who they are, a certain perspective. We do not get the full picture. So on the road of trying to be this person, right, or on the road of trying to meet these standards or expectations that your mind has put before you, we experience, right? We experience life, we experience things, the trials of change, as we mentioned earlier. If I'm trying to get good as a pro Chrom player or pro COD player or whatever, right, and I analyze their play style and what that looks like, right, there's certain things I'm going to have to experience along the way. And so what we experience is the processing of decisions, deciding what we should do, right? Just saying no to old ways and saying yes to new ways. Saying no to old habits and saying yes to new habits. Saying yes to the right habits after we've done our research. And this includes opportunity cost. People say, I don't have time for certain things. But it's not so much of time, but rather they lack the energy. They lack the emotional energy or the motivation or willpower to do the necessary change. And so when you put energy into one thing, that energy is getting pulled from somewhere else. So the energy I spend playing with my nephews and being a great uncle is energy taken away from my wife. And it sounds like weird ultimatum and people can get frustrated by what I just said, but that's the reality of the situation. My boss, right, my pastor, he told me something that someone shared with him, and he said, be careful what you say yes to, because what you say yes to, you say no to 100 other things. So he said his kids get the first no's. And that is just a simple but yet powerful statement that is true, and it does not only apply to ministers but applies to all of us. When you say yes to watching pornography, you're saying no to love. When you say yes to going out for a smoke, you may be saying no to community. I know that when I was around people who smoked, it was really hard for me to be around them, and that could take away from us having some authentic, great conversations that had brought division between us, because I'm not trying to smoke that stuff either. Throughout life, you'll experience pain. especially if you're trying to make the appropriate changes, right? Emotional pain, stress, right? Or sometimes physical pain if you're trying to work out. But you got to be careful because laziness and failure will influence you as well. You may be taught by pain because you were too lazy and you made a big mistake. You've messed up, you failed, and you may let that teach you in a bad way or teach you in a wrong way. I tell people all the time, don't wait for tragedy to teach you. The tragedy is a great teacher, but tragedy will push you on the extremes of certain sides, and you got to have that right balance and reflection. Humiliation can teach you, and that goes with tragedy, as I mentioned before, right? You were so close, you were so close, but you lost, or the way you lost was so embarrassing at life, right? You got caught doing something you shouldn't have been doing, and that loss was so humiliating, and that humiliation could have been something that was turned around for the good. Remember, you don't have to be a Christian for God to bless you, and in that, God can use anything bad and turn it around for good, to show you his love, to pursue you, and to reach out to you, right? Wins could teach you. Loss could teach you. All these different things you experience can teach you, but are you listening? Are you paying attention? And what are you doing with the information that's being taught? Are you challenging the lesson that you so-called learned in the situation? Because not every lesson taught is 100% beneficial, is 100% accurate. You can be receiving false teachings, and you need to be careful. You need to challenge it, right? You need to hold it up to some standard or some type of spiritual ruler where you can test the confidence of what has been shown or been taught to you, right? Have you ever thought, okay, this is the most effective way to do something, but when you do it, it doesn't seem like it? And so you just scrap that idea. Maybe that idea was right, but there was something else in the formula that was off. And you have to keep trying and keep pushing for you to fully understand, right? And it's a journey. It is a journey to change, to be the character that you seek out to be. I mentioned earlier about Call of Duty. See, Call of Duty is another game that comes to mind. And it's not really a character select type game, but a weapon select kind of game, right? You choose your loadouts, right? You choose what you want to set up, what weapons, what perks, all these little elements to create you, your character, your person. And you can even name your loadouts to get you in the right mindset. One of my nephews names his loadout American Sniper, and that gets him in the right mood to do what he needs to do. One of my loadouts is named after a character from one of my graphic novels, and that gets me set up mentally and prepared for what I need to do for me to be all in, right? Loadouts influence the course of the match among many other things. So loadout before Search and Destroy, a loadout before Warzone. I have a specific Search and Destroy class for defense and offense, and I have a specific loadout class for Warzone because those different game modes provide different things. It plays different. There's different elements that are involved when it comes to winning, right? When it comes to the objective. And in life, when you're at home, you may have to behave slightly different from when you're at school or when you're out on the road doing whatever. But you have to be careful that you're not being fake, that it's you, but it's different variants of you. And that makes me think about Mortal Kombat. Or again, I can go back to Call of Duty. It's the different loadout. So you're still playing you, it's your play style, but it's slightly shifted and adjusted and adapting to the circumstance. Paul says, be Greek to the Greek, Jew to the Jew, saying the way to minister to people, you have to understand them, understand their mindset, right? And you have to make the appropriate shifts and say the right things. And that is what love is. Love is understanding others. And when you love someone, you truly love them, and you take the time to understand the way they think, the way they go about life, then you can be more effective in loving them, more effective in leading them, because now you can lead them in their language. Now you can love them in their language where they will receive the love emotionally, where they understand, okay, this person loves me, and it's not a weird mishap or clash of personalities and or perspectives. And you may think, okay, I figure this person out, I get them, but times change. In video games, characters and weapons, they receive these things called buffs, making the weapon stronger or better. And there's these things called nerfs, where the weapon or character gets weaker. And so in life, you think, all right, I figured out my wife. But then there's something like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I've talked to so many married men, they're like, you'll never figure her out. There's not like a formula to it. And it's because in one season it looks like you get it, and then another season you don't. Because the meta changes, meta standing for most effective tactic available, right? Those things change. And you got to be careful that you don't get too comfortable and you get lazy, because there's a lot of danger in laziness. When you become slothful, when you become lazy, things can start going by, but you're not aware that things are changing around you, and you'll marry the old method that you've grown so accustomed to, making you ineffective in your area, in your situation, whether it's in being again, a parent, being a son, a child, a brother, a sister, a worker, a minister, whatever the situation might be. What worked in high school may not work in college. What worked when you were at this person's house may not work when you're married. All right. Now I got another question for you. What happens if you keep losing? What happens if you keep hitting the wall, messing up over and over and over? Well, you got to keep going. But keep a calm mind, take a second to process and reflect on the situation. Okay? Sometimes we need the loss. Needing a big loss or a close one can show us that we need to make some slight adjustments. Can reveal to us what are we doing wrong. Again, Smash Bros. That game is super simple. You're going to have a great time, but it can get so complex. It can get crazy. Like with the again, these terms of frame rates and just lag inputs and the game mechanics and physics. When you understand all these things, there's videos upon videos upon videos on how to play Smash Bros, right? On how to get good at it with movement and attacks and the different character. And it's crazy how complex it can get. And the same thing can go with life. You are trying to understand how to go about life, but there's not a specific formula in how to be happy. There's not a specific formula. We hear these good quotes and read a good scripture or verse or get a nice word of encouragement, especially when it comes to coping with death or loss. But when we're in the moment, it seems like all that stuff goes out the window. We don't remember the verses, or we do, but we feel nothing. They're just empty words. Despite not feeling anything, we still try to make the proper adjustments. But the adjustments don't guarantee you a win every single time. But it is needed. So you may be making a step in the right direction. See, I'm not here to give you tips on video games, but rather life. These games are parables God has used to teach me, to help me grow. If I keep losing, then I need to reflect and readjust. I need to do some research on sleeping habits, dietary habits, time management, etc. When you look in the mirror and you're not satisfied with what you see, why is that? Take a moment to understand, to process. Why is that? Make the proper adjustments, do what you can do now, right? And wake up the next day and tackle it. Do what you gotta do. Do the research. But be careful where you get your research from. You need to challenge the sources that you're receiving this information from. See, one thing that I tend to go to for advice, for research, for knowledge, is the Bible, is the Word of God. So there's this man named Paul, right? His name used to be Saul, but he became Paul. And this man was a Pharisee. This man was a religious Jewish man who was a try-hard believer of God. He knew the Bible, Old Testament, like the back of his hand. He knew the Torah so easily. He was all about it. But his zeal was so extreme that he wanted to kill, murder anyone who came against him, who came against the Word of God. And in a way, he was kind of like don't kill me for this, but it's in a way he was like a Jewish Nazi. He was a man that if you were a Christian, I'm going to stone you, I'm going to destroy you. He set up stoning rings, right, for these people who spoke heresy about Jesus Christ being the Messiah. He was willing to destroy them. And it's crazy to see how on his journey from one town to another, he was struck blind. God found him, caught him actually, stopped him in his tracks, and told him what's up. See, Paul went ahead, got blind, then got his vision restored, and realized that he had witnessed God. And God was telling him, stop killing the Christians. These are my people. Christ is real. And in that, he completely shifted his demeanor, shifted his personality. Paul had a massive failure, a big loss, but that big loss gave him the revelation needed for him to make the proper adjustments. And now when you read his letters in the New Testament, right, in the Christian's holy Bible, you will see this man always referring to himself as a Christian, as a servant, a believer of God. That is the first thing he identifies himself as. Who are you identifying yourself as? Which character are you choosing to be? Are you identifying yourself by your gender, by your race, by your sexual orientation, by your job? Who are you? Because if whatever you choose, be careful, because when you marry that method, when things change or something happens, you may have a midlife crisis. You may hit rock bottom and you may reach this point of confusion and you don't know who you are, where now the person in the mirror is now a stranger. Paul went out and made all these changes to his habit, to his lifestyle, to his perspective, right? This man went and told people about the good news of Christ, right? Started showing love to people, telling them about the miracles of God, that there's a God out there who loves them, helping people understand, leading other believers in Christ to do the right thing, to be who God has called them to be, and to avoid the behaviors that will bring them back to being a slave of sin. See, Paul downloaded a DLC that made him top tier, but he didn't pay for it. Christ did, with his blood, sweat, and tears. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came to this earth and died on the cross for our sins. For 30 years, he had to resist the same temptations that we had to resist. He was fully man. He had to resist lustful temptations. He had to resist being lazy. He had to resist the anger. Can you imagine how his brothers treated him? Knowing or being told that their brother's the Messiah, they probably bullied him. They probably felt insecure with Jesus living in the same house as them. They probably saw Jesus as Mary's favorite. So how much anger and bitterness and tension was in that home? There's just so much that we don't fully grasp or understand, or that we can simply miss because our emotions or things come and create these walls, and then it gives us a narrow mindset and perspective. And now we're looking into a labyrinth where we think we know where we're going with these walls, but in reality we're in this maze of nonsense, of knowledge. Confusion is like the maze of knowledge, right? These walls just come up, obstruct your vision, obstruct the end of the tunnel, obstruct what you really need to see. The salvation prayer is you pressing yes when you accept this DLC into your life, this downloadable content for Christ to come and set you free from those bad habits and addictions and those things that are consuming you, to set you free from those negative thoughts that are eating you up, to set you free from the depression, from the anxiety. We pick characters we identify with and or characters we want to be. Who do you want to be? If you were an option in a game, would you choose you? Games give us the option to create our own character so we can make the ideal person we want to be, or the person we see ourselves as. Please do me this favor. Take a moment, get a piece of paper, a pencil, or you can do it on your notes right now. If you're driving, please keep your hands on the wheel. But whenever you have the chance, write your name at the center of the piece of paper. Your first and middle name if you have one. And then around that, write all the words that come to mind, all the words that you like, right? Words that you're attracted to, things that you like. So for my list, it'll probably look like, I'll probably wrote sapphire, blue, retribution, reconciliation, fighting, martial arts, war, art, whatever. And after you do that, and you just exhausted everything that has come to mind, go ahead and research what is the meaning of your first and middle name, and then write those meanings under your first and middle name. Now set that paper to the side, and now do another thing for me. Write down a list of 10 things, okay? 10 characteristics of you, of your character design, of who you are, all right? Your real self, not who you want to be, not what you like to see yourself as, but 10 real facts about you. Then make a list of 10 ideal character traits that you want to strive for, that you believe or would like to see happen in your life. Now with those two lists and that piece of paper I've had you write about your name, those are some spiritual / psychological exercises I've done with people. I've done with some students, I've done with my nephews, to help them uncover who God is calling them to be, to see where God has been in their life, to see where God is directing them and guiding them to. Now I'm going to end with this. Take time to reflect on what you've written. And as you let God speak to you through what you've written down, ask yourself, would you like to continue? Thank you for listening. I'm praying for you all, and God bless.